actually. Hold on. Just... Okay. Okay, we'll do that again. Oh, shoo shoo. Hello guys, happy Lunar New Year. Well, actually, not so happy. I had a video planned out where I was gonna talk about the traditions in my family, but I felt deep down in my soul I had to share an honest story with you guys. I'm gonna start off with a quote from Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. If we live in America, we're poisoned by the racist air we breathe. The fact that the programmed poison of racism was pumped into us may not be our fault, but getting out of it is sure as hell our responsibility. Where is the pain in the world that you just cannot stand? Stand there. The thing that breaks your heart is the very thing you were born to help heal. Courage says, I will not let the fact that I cannot do everything keep me from doing what I can. And then she talks about how people can make up excuses and not answer the door to heartbreak. You can say something like, oh, I wish I could learn more about that injustice. I wish I could get involved with that cause. I wish I could just read that article. I wish I could show up for that family. But I can't bear to it because it'll break my heart. It's like we really believe that our hearts were meant to be hidden away, bubble wrapped, and under lockdown. As if the point of life is not to be moved and not to feel pain. And I'll be completely honest, when I was reading up on a lot of these anti-Asian hate crimes and the discrimination that's going on, the first thing I felt was, okay, like, I understand completely why people are speaking up and why we are frustrated. It brought me back to moments that I just didn't want to think about. And it's exactly what Glennon was saying of not wanting to open that door of heartbreak. But I guess I've never really talked about this topic before because I haven't truly faced it. Asian people were not expected to be loud. We have the stereotype that we obey the rules and we stay quiet and we don't like to cause conflict, but people are speaking up and it has only paved the way for me to also speak up. So I thank everyone who has the courage because it has allowed me to finally speak up about a situation that happened back in March of last year. I went on a work trip to India, and on our last day, we went to Taj Mahal. I noticed this group of guys who were standing 6 feet away from me. I slowly looked over and I knew what they were looking at or who they were looking at. They kept on staring at me and just laughing. Then they started saying some remarks that were kind of unclear to me at first, but I quickly understood that this was a racist attempt of shutting me out and making me feel really uncomfortable. They kept saying hurtful things like, that girl has COVID. I felt so paralyzed in that moment. The only thing that was coming through me was anger. I told the tour guide, they're looking at me, and he's like, no, don't worry, they're not looking at you. And I was like, no, they are looking at me. He turned around because he saw that they wouldn't stop, making these remarks. And I remember as soon as we got there, everyone was like, wow, this is so beautiful. And I couldn't get into that mode. I couldn't ignore them. I felt like I saw them everywhere I went. These group of guys were looking at me that way and made those comments. Then everyone else here is looking at me like this. I told the tour guide, I was like, I want to disappear and not be seen right now. And he was like, it's fine, don't worry about them, they don't know any better, put your glasses on. That comment in itself triggered something in me where it was just an acknowledgement of just hide who you are, play it small. These people, they'll go about and they'll do it to the next person. I really didn't think about sharing this story, but I made that moment mean that everywhere I go now, I will be a walking target. Even if I go back to Canada, a country that is so welcoming to all these ethnicities and backgrounds, I'm still gonna get that look and that fear from people. My ego, Agatha, was like, okay, get your guard up, protect yourself, harbor that anger. But when I got back here, I remember I was grocery shopping and this man was looking at me I immediately thought, oh, he thinks it. I know he thinks it. It's something that I have internalized. I am working through because I don't want to make that moment mean anything. As much as we like to say that Canada is very multicultural, the environment I grew up in was not that way. It was a different experience for me. And I grew up in an environment where I was one of the many few Asian people in elementary school as well as high school. The cultures, the food, the language, it was made fun of and not accepted. The honest truth, I never felt like I belonged. I just felt really unhappy to be in my skin. I was so embarrassed of my family. I just didn't want to have any attachment to the idea of like people finding out that I was Asian because of the environment that I grew up in. I was teased a lot for having small eyes, for having a big nose. In those moments, I would laugh it off because I didn't know any better. I didn't want to be the person that is completely left out. And the reason why I am sharing this story is because I don't want this to happen to generations after me. If we fall into this box of what is expected of us, to stay quiet and to obey the way our parents did and do, we're not doing anything to help out the younger kids right now who are feeling like they don't belong. If we all do our work and just question, is it right to tease someone because they look different? And trusting in yourself and your gut feeling, because we were all born wholesome and loving. We weren't born to treat each other this way. As we grew up, we just learned beliefs that were fed to us to protect people in power. I may just be one person. It's just that what can I do right now with the story that I have? And the best way I know how is to tell it as honestly as possible. And the harm that can happen if we don't speak up is that these kids will harbor this hate against the people who make fun of them. They're gonna be everyone but themselves because they learned at a very young age that they don't belong because of the way that they look. I'm a living example of that, and I am trying to undo all the beliefs that I've picked up when I was in elementary school and high school. That is why I believe that our stories are important. Yeah, I'm exhausted. Let me know if this connected with any of you guys. I would love to hear your stories. So yeah, love you guys and thank you for watching this. Oh my God. Oh.